Hello and welcome to the CBB Super Show, brought to you by the FTN Network. I am Walter Waddell, a.k.a. the Niche Sports Connoisseur. I'm Dub Deuces 85. You know me. You love me. We're grinding our way to March Madness. We are out here each and every day. Conference tournaments next week. Can you believe it? Amazing things going on. We are broadcasting live on my Twitter account, but also on the FTN YouTube channel, ftnfantasy.com. Check it out. We have all the tools you need to be a winning sports bettor and DFS player. What are we going to do here today, folks? Well, let me tell you, we're going to break down the 11-game CBB slate that is taking place on DraftKings from a DFS perspective. We're going to go through each game, kind of give our thoughts, list a little bit of the projections that we're working on, and then also, maybe give a little bit of a core. We'll also do some best bet stuff, any prop picks, and then we'll get out of here. We're roughly 6.5 hours to the slate. We are going to start doing regular super shows once more. Been really doing a lot behind the scenes, so I haven't been able to be as visible as I'd like, as we normally are. But now that we're in conference tournament time, just about and into the 3 weeks from Selection Sunday, I'm going to be much more visible with the shows. We're going to have some co-hosts. We're going to have a lot of stuff coming your way, so I'm very, very excited for that. Cannot wait. Let's get after it. Let me first make sure this is all broadcasting the right thing. All right, so it's not posting where it should be. Okay, we'll just retweet it later. All right, so those of you who are new to the show, welcome. What we do here, we go game by game, breaking down the DFS slate, talking a little bit about the various college basketball games. If you're watching live or on demand, we do appreciate that very much. Make sure you please hit the like button, repost, retweet, interact, all of that stuff. Engagements helps us a tremendous amount. It is a form of currency, and those engagements really help us with what we are doing / working on. Been at this a very long time, since 2013, when Blog Talk Radio was a thing. You might remember such characters as Johnny, Rob, aka How the Pros Do, GSU, and many others. I love it. I love it, man. And we've been doing very well. The community is growing, green screens and window trips. Lots going on. FTN have some NFL Combine best bets content coming your way there on FTN. Also going to have a ton of bracket coverage as well. Endless amounts of content this time of year. You know how we do. Let's just get right into it. All right, we're going to start with first game on the slate here, Kentucky versus South Carolina. Just going to pull each of these up one at a time. All right. Kentucky is a 7.5-point favorite. That's moved since the overnight of 6.5. Total of 149.5. A little bit of a trappy spot here for Kentucky. Definitely feels that way. Let me pull up my screen. This isn't sharing on Twitter like it should be. It's problematic here, folks. Problematic. Shows me live. It doesn't. Okay, whatever. That's a bummer. All right. Sharing screen. So what I'm going to do here is share my screen. So the projection is going to show in the background while I'm speaking, as we do. So there's that. There we are. All right. All right, Kentucky. Bit of an odd team to watch. Their last game against Auburn, which ended up being a late 75-74 loss, was quite ugly. Guard play was atrocious. Otega Awe does like everything for the team, high usage guy, great overall DFS option, but man, watching their offense operate is atrocious. Colin Chandler is a turnover machine. They really should be looking to exploit the underneath matchups with Malachi Moreno a lot more, especially in that matchup against Auburn, and they just didn't do that. Very, very difficult to watch and feel very good about. All right. Price-wise here, starting with the Kentucky side, South Carolina doesn't have a lot to play for. I do have some concerns, again, about this Kentucky offense and how they play, especially on the road. Are they going to take this game serious? Have to say they put a lot of money out on guys like Jaden Quaintance, who's just, played like four halves of a game. Jalen Lowe, Cam Williams. This hasn't quite worked out here. When you look at the projections, Malachi Moreno at 5'9" still does project the best there, just barely. I'm extremely concerned about him on the road here. I just don't like the way that the rotations go. He has a short leash. We see him, he got off to a good start against Auburn and then immediately yanked. Brandon Garrison comes in, does his foul thing. We see Mo Diabate come in, take minutes. Diabate actually played over 30 minutes last game. So it's really difficult to justify in a main lineup playing any of the Kentucky front court players, even though I do really kind of like them in this spot against South Carolina when we think of just DVP. But situationally on the road, coaching staff, rotations, it does seem a little bit rough and it's hard to feel confident about it. Denzel Aberdeen at 6K, Colin Chandler at 6'2", and then Otega Awe at 8'2". Out of the three of those, I think Awe is the most beneficial play there from a raw point standpoint. He's just going to have a ton of usage. And when you look at that game against Auburn, there wasn't a shot he was not willing to take. His usage rate for that game ended up being just under 33%. He took 20 shots in that one, 10 of 17 on 2-point field goals, 1 of 3 from long range, 6 of 8 at the line. It was a pretty solid damn game for him, no doubt. We like that. And he probably should be priced more like 9K, honestly. And he's just not. So he's definitely playable here, probably more so in the Mania Q, large field, the jam, all of that stuff. Not so sure that I'm going to start there with my main build, just because I feel like this Kentucky spot here is a little bit tricky. On the South Carolina side, there's almost no exposure I want. The South Carolina team has been pretty brutal. Things just have not improved. I would have thought by now, what is this year? Is this year 4? Year 4 of the Lamont Paris era. They were 26-8 2 years ago. Really solid performance there in year 2 of Lamont Paris. They did get beat by Oregon as a 6 seed there, but they had a pretty good season, especially in SEC play, and they've just gone backwards from there. And they're 12-15. It's gonna be they probably lose 20 games. Just not a lot of continuity here with the actual offense. They do bring back Michi Johnson, of course. He has a high usage rate. Elijah Strong, who is a junior who transferred in from Boston College. He actually, believe it or not, has one of the highest usage rates in the country on a per-minute basis at 35.4%. And he had some pretty big games overall early in the season. The problem is, he can't defend very well, so he can't stay on the floor. He also has difficulties wanting to rebound and do anything besides chuck 3, so he doesn't find himself with many minutes. Earlier this season, we saw him playing 28, 29, and 30 minutes. Now we're seeing him play 12, 15, 19. It's very difficult to roster, but his per-minute basis stats are pretty solid from a usage standpoint. Mongolian Mike, a.k.a. Mike Travajamps, he's been one of my favorites, but I had to stop using him. I do notice he's been playing quite well. He put a 34 up a couple of days ago and a 30 against Alabama. So he definitely has it in him, but 6'6" is a little bit too high there. I'd be more comfortable paying in the 5K to 5.5 range for him, and he's just good enough to where that price is never going to fall to that range. Now, Miles Stude is out for South Carolina, which I have to adjust here. I don't think I've done that yet. So yeah, I'll have to remove him and add some minutes elsewhere. So that will push some minutes to guys like Eli Ellis, who is kind of an intriguing freshman who has decent rates overall. Not a great 3-point shooter, but has been able to facilitate a little bit, run the offense adequately. He is priced at 5K, so a little bit higher than we'd like to pay, but he has put up 20-plus fantasy points in 2 of his last 4, so he's certainly a capable option there if the minutes are going to go his direction with Stude out. Overall, this game's pretty ugly. From a betting perspective, I do think South Carolina, especially plus 7.5, makes the most sense, especially with that line moving. I would wait at this point and probably maybe get closer to tip-off. I think there'll be some late money coming in on Kentucky just from a name brand standpoint. So you may get a slightly better number here for South Carolina if you want to bet that direction. If I had to guess right now, I'd say it's probably a 1 to 2 possession game at most. Ken Palm has it as a 77-71 type of score. I think it's going to be close. If South Carolina won this game, I wouldn't even be shocked about that. Now, I'm certainly not betting that happened, but I do think plus 7.5 is the right side here. All right, let's move on to our next game, which is NC State versus Virginia. All right, Virginia, 6.5-point favorite. What? Total of 150.5. Big betting opportunity here for the Wolfpack. You know, Virginia, man, all the credit in the world to Ryan Odom. They're 24-3, and I feel like people don't even realize that that's going on. Like, Virginia hasn't really gotten a lot of hype necessarily. You know, the freshmen in all across the collegiate game have been getting more of that love. There's been some coaching hot seat stuff. There's been some drama. There's been a lot of different things. And Virginia just hasn't been on the forefront of the media, hype machine. I almost feel like they've quietly put up this 24-3 record, which is pretty interesting, right? They're certainly good. Now, they have already played NC State back on January 3rd, and that was a road victory in Raleigh for the Cavs, 76-61. So naturally, people are going to look at it and say, oh, they're at home. They should smack them around. Virginia hasn't lost a game since January 24th against North Carolina, and that was just a 5-point loss. They've beaten the likes of Ohio State, Miami, Florida in a very close game. I thought Miami should have probably won that game. And then they've had a very easy schedule otherwise. Georgia Tech, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, Notre Dame, Boston College. They haven't really had to play anyone. You'll notice there's no Duke, which is coming up next Saturday, or this Saturday, actually. They'll be playing Duke. Wake Forest, Virginia Tech. Like, they ended up with an easy schedule. And the ACC is relatively soft this year. Stop me if you've heard that before. It's seemingly soft every year. So they've been aided by that schedule. I think they're a prime candidate to be a letdown here in March and in the ACC tournament. I think that starts today here against NC State, where I do think the Wolfpack will cover the 6.5. Might they actually win this game as well? Pretty good chance. NC State's 19-8. They are in the tournament as of now. Let's take a look at Bracket Matrix real quick. Let's see where they're slotted here. The bracket, or the top 16 reveal show, took place as well, so we're getting a lot of that. All right, so Bracket Matrix consistently places them as the worst 7 seed / best 8 seed. So they're in the tournament right now at that 19-8. They need to not lose this game, or at least be competitive. The rest of the schedule for NC State shapes up semi-favorably, as in they have Notre Dame and Stanford on the schedule, but they have Duke wedged in there too on Monday, March 2nd. So that's a pretty tough one. So they really could use this Virginia win, right? And those 2 gimme games, quote unquote, against Notre Dame and Stanford. So very much backing Will Wade, the American gangster, here today. I have one player in particular that I always love when the Wolfpack are on the slate. That is, of course, Quadir Copeland. Copeland has been phenomenal this season, putting up some great numbers overall. One of the best offensive ratings on the team. Usage rate of 28.2%, assist rate of 44%, which is 5th best in the country. A steals rate of 3.8%, that's top 70. Draws about 5.5 fouls per 40, and he's making about 42% of his threes. Now, he doesn't take a ton of volume for threes. He's only attempted 52 this year. He's never been a big three-point shooter. You can go back to his time at Syracuse, last year at McNeese. He just wasn't a volume shooter. Now, he's shot infrequently from long range, and he's barely made 20% throughout the course of his career. Now he's made 42% on 52 attempts. So the attempts are up, and he's made more. In conference play, he has dropped to 32% overall, though. He's just much more better as a driver. He's a facilitator. He can get to the basket. He can draw fouls. That's his game. Driving to the basket, making things happen, getting steals. He's great at peripherals. Really like Quadir Copeland's game overall because he has a solid floor, because he contributes in all categories. And those are the type of players we really want to stuff our lineups with, right? When you go back and look at the last time that they played Virginia early in January, Copeland played 34 minutes, had 15 points. He hit 2 threes in that game for what it's worth. 2 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal. Not the greatest stat line for somebody who's priced at nearly 8K, but I have a much better feeling about him. I think he's going to perform quite well. I think 30 is an inevitability. And I think the price of 7.7 is relatively, reasonable for what we can expect from him. He's going to have the ball in his hands often. Other options we can look at, of course, Darian Williams, who's priced all the way at 6.2, did get banged up, did return. So I don't think we're going to see anything with him missing time. You, of course, have Trey Holloman, Paul McNeil, all semi-cheap guys. None of them are consistent whatsoever, so you're going to want to definitely use them as alt-type plays when you're building out, your MME stuff. I don't see any of them being main team guys except for Copeland, perhaps Darian Williams because of the price there, and Van Allen Lubin, who's priced pretty cheaply at 6.4, but again, another guy that we can really count on. And Virginia has some size in the front court, and I think there's going to be a lot of fouls in this game from that standpoint. Guys like Johan Grunlow, Ugonna Anyenzo on the Virginia side, and of course, Van Allen Lubin and possibly Darian Williams on the NC State side. I think this all ends up being a type of game where Copeland thrives because he's going to get to the free throw line a lot. And if this ends up being a close game where NC State's actually in the driver's seat during the free throw shooting time, the last 3 to 5 minutes of the game, Copeland's stats just going to rack up points there because he's going to be the one with the ball in his hand. So that type of script really favors Copeland. The best Virginia play from a point per dollar standpoint is Thiz DeRitter at 7.1. He's okay. I don't mind him. I think we can do a little bit better with our money there, but he is only 7.1, so it's definitely a reasonable look there. And then you'll notice Dallin Hall, who has been projecting pretty well for Virginia. He's not trustworthy whatsoever. He's finally had enough bad games to where he's normalized on the projection side, and I just don't have to worry about him. Sam Lewis, same thing. Chance Mallory. All these cheap Virginia guards / wing players who, they play a lot of minutes. They can definitely get there for me. I can get 4X out of them at this 5K, 5.5 range, right? Well, it's like pulling teeth, and I no longer want to do that. And since we're having ourselves an 11-game slate, we don't really have to worry about that. All right, so, and keep in mind, some of this stuff is going to change as injury news comes out. I just want to do this first look here. Usually do the show at night. I have a very young son at home, and a lot of times I end up putting him to bed, and then I just fall asleep myself. I'm on the wrong side of 40 now, just turned 40 last year, and those all-nighters just do not work out. So I think we're going to be doing the show kind of early in the morning like this a lot more, but obviously we'll do some nighttime stuff too. And don't worry, Mike Kutry has said he would do the show. He's always down. Adam, the editor, Supreme, he's down to do the show. So we'll be doing him at various times. I've been getting a lot of DMs and a lot of people asking about the show schedule and if we're going to do them more regularly. And the answer is yes. All right, let's move along here to the next game, which is Duke versus Notre Dame. Now, this is a 17.5 point spread in favor of Duke, total of 139.5. I am seeing some folks on the Notre Dame side in terms of that's a lot of points. Duke's coming off the big win, purely from a spot perspective, makes a lot of sense, right? Duke just coming off the victory over Michigan, very impressive. I will say this, sidebar for a minute, Michigan shot horribly. They played into Duke's pace. It really wasn't their game. They were in foul trouble. Ademara was in foul trouble from the very first whistle. First second, the horn sounded. Really just was Duke's game. And still, Michigan was in it to the very end and ended up losing by only 5 points. So I'm very confident in this Michigan team. I've built a pretty, not to sound pompous, impressive position on Michigan futures way back in October, November with my buddy Johnny. And I feel pretty good about that, where I stand with Michigan. It took me longer this year to admit it. Last year, around early to mid-January, I said the words, man, this Florida Gators team, they're way too good. I don't think they're going to be beaten by anyone come March. I think that this is your national champion. Like, I felt that way. And we slammed Florida futures from that point forward. It worked out for us. Now, it took me longer because Michigan guard play, I'm a little bit, I don't feel nearly as confident in them as I did the guards last year. I think anyone can see that, right? Florida guards last year were some of the best in history, I'd say. So here we are, almost end of February, but at mid-February, after the Michigan disrobing, if you will, of Purdue at the Mackey, I was ready to declare Michigan as the probable national champion. And my thought process and feeling hasn't changed. Losing to Duke, I still feel extremely confident. If anything, that loss to Duke's really going to catapult and propel them forward. The shooting will have to be consistent. Guards matter more during the tournament. We know that. Elliot Kadu, are we really going to be able to rely on him? Probably not. He's a great facilitator, but if he has to shoot, he is shooting 39% from long range this season. But are we confident in him for the tournament? I just don't know. They do have some decent shooters and guys like LJ Kaysen, the eternal one, Namari Burnett, who's capable of getting hot for 1 or 2 games, Trey McKinney, who I think is going to be really good next year as a sophomore, and then Roddy Gale, who's there, who's not the best shooter, but is capable, and then Will Schwetter. They do have the guys, and they only need to get hot for a couple of games, and really it could be a different guy each game. So I think Michigan does it a little differently than Florida did last year, but people just aren't going to be able at the collegiate level guard this 3 big lineup. You have to attack, and you have to hope you can get Morez Johnson or Ademara or Yaxel Lenenberg into foul trouble. Your number one target for foul trouble is typically going to be Ademara because he is a hacker and always going for the block. You can get one of them to the floor, you have a chance. But all that to say that I think Michigan is going to be your national champion. I do now officially arrive at that decision, that consensus that they are this year's Florida Gators. Now, there are a lot of people saying Florida's going to repeat, and repeating is extremely difficult. And not to, I'm not a bracketologist. I'm not I don't pretend to be not a messiah when it comes to picking the champion, but I have had futures the last 3 years, UConn, Florida. In each of those years, by January, February, I said this team's going to win. UConn was just too dominant. They were going to repeat. I was 100% confident in that. Last year, I was not confident in UConn. They didn't repeat. So with that being said, Michigan's going to be the national champions. I feel pretty confident in that. All right. Let's keep moving around here. I hate that the Twitter account's not working right now because people can't watch it there. Anyways, as I sidebar there, so Duke coming off the Michigan win. They do have Virginia on Saturday, which is a home game. A bit of a look-ahead spot, yes. I think Notre Dame's going to cover here. They don't have Marcus Burton. We know that. They're not going to have Jalen Harlison, most likely, right? No, he is out. He is officially ruled out. So, 2 of their best scorers over the last year and last year are just not available. So that's going to make things a lot tougher. Yeah, I'll be right there. Go ahead. All right, just a second. All right, guys, I'll be right back. 1 second. All right. Sorry about that. When you got the youngster asking for something, you got to take a step back. All right. So Notre Dame, I do like them from a betting perspective, plus 17.5. Kind of want to wait and see if we'll get a better number, but it hasn't moved since overnight like some of the other lines have. So we're probably not. I think people are kind of recognizing that this is a simple overlook or look ahead spot, right? And coming off the kind of semi-dramatic win over Michigan. Now, from a DFS perspective, you might sit here and say, well, Notre Dame is down a few guys. What can we do there? Is there anyone we like? Not really. We've done the Notre Dame thing with the missing pieces in better matchups, perhaps. Even then, it's not like they did all that well. We know Braden Shrewsbury is going to take a high number of shots. We know Cole Serta is going to take a bunch of threes, but really nothing else to see here. I think Carson Tout's going to struggle mightily. Brady Keeler, who's the young forward, I do really like his long-term prospects, but not really a play here. Isaiah Evans, if this does blow out completely, not going to be, he's the first one to lose minutes. Dame Sarr is okay, but he's not going to be looking to do much offensively. It's really just a decision of, do we want to pay up for Cam Boozer, or do we want to pay down perhaps for Patrick Ngongba and hope for him to pay off in 24, 25 minutes, which is definitely possible. You see here, he's right above 4X, but Boozer at 10.5, really when he's this price, 10.5 up to 11K, when fading him, you're really just looking to avoid a 50. You can survive on the fade with a 4.5X. It's when we start getting into the 50s that the fade no longer is viable. And we've been able to get away with that here lately, especially on slates like today, where there are, a pretty decent amount of payups that we can feel pretty good about. And when you look at Boozer, he hasn't hit 50 plus since January 24th in a game against Duke. That was a 90-69, semi blowout late. The game was competitive early, and he did a lot in the first half of that game. Same can be said in their blowout win against Stanford back on January 17th when he put up his high water mark of 66. Second highest score, 66. He had a 71 earlier this year against Indiana State. So yes, there is precedent for him to put up these slate breaking scores in blowouts. And since I think this is a chance for Notre Dame to cover, it makes all the sense in the world here for Boozer to be rostered. I do think we see, even on 11 game slate here, him touch the 30%, maybe even higher, 35% mark. There's a very good chance of that happening. And there is enough value, I think, to make it work. But, man, the balanced approach to today looks very, very tasty, I must say. So if I think I can get away with Boozer putting up less than 50, 45 even, I'm okay. And I am leaning that direction for sure. I just think the look ahead to Virginia is too strong. And the same could be said on the Virginia game we just talked about, them looking ahead to Duke. So real good betting opportunities here with NC State on the road and Notre Dame at home. Jeremy, my man, says, what is up? Appreciate it. He's one of the guys have been asking me, where is the Super Show? What can we do here? Here we are on the FTN YouTube. I don't know why it's not working on Twitter. It's killing our live views, but that's okay. It does show me with the live circle here, but I got a notice from StreamYard saying they're having some difficulties showing up live. So that's unfortunate, but that's okay. We'll talk to a handful of people and we'll all win money together. All right, let's move on to the next game here, which is Cincinnati versus Texas Tech. This is a pretty solid game. This is one that we want a sizable amount of exposure to. Currently, Texas Tech is a 6.5 point favorite, total of 141.5. This is one where we'll probably see a sizable amount of game stacks here in large field GPP. And then when you get into high dollar single entry stuff, you'll probably see, 2-3 man Texas Tech stacks. We know JT Toppin is done for the year. I mentioned I have a pretty healthy portfolio on Michigan. I also have a healthy portfolio of futures on Texas Tech that I no longer feel great about for obvious reasons. No JT Toppin. That hurt. I felt like this Texas Tech team was destined for a Final Four run. Alas, that's not going to happen. Injuries happen. That's just how it is. Very winnable game for both sides, I'd say. Texas Tech, they say do you guys know what the Ewing theory is? Patrick Ewing getting hurt for the Knicks. The Knicks, right after he's out, play extremely well. And then they kind of have their letdown after the game without Toppin, coming off a very tough loss to Arizona State on the road. They just absolutely waxed Kansas State 100-72. So you might sit here and say, okay, they had their one game bump without Toppin. Now things will normalize. Might they have a pretty rough, go of it? Perhaps. The schedule doesn't get any easier here for them. It's a really tough one. They're 20-7. They are tournament bound. They do need to prevent themselves from looking ahead here. They have a road game at Ames on Saturday against Iowa State. Then they're back home on Tuesday against TCU, and then they finish the season next Saturday on the road against BYU. So a very tough schedule here. Winnable game they need to get against the Cincinnati team. Don't look now. Wes Miller on the hot seat, but suddenly Cincinnati's 15-12. And they've won 4 games in a row, which includes wins against UCF and Kansas. The recent road win at Fogg, 84-68. Now, Kansas, well done last night. Bill Self doesn't lose on Big Monday. He's now 41-0 on Big Mondays. Absolutely riveting stuff there without Darren Peterson for a lot of it. That's a story for another day. But this Cincinnati team won 4 games in a row. I do think Texas Tech wins this game, but it's going to be a battle. 6.5 is too many points. That is in that weird range where you start getting into the free throw game, that can go one way or the other for you, especially in that 6-7 range. So just be careful. Cincinnati is 11th in defensive efficiency, by the way. So they've got some dudes that can definitely give Texas Tech's offense some problems here from a rim protection standpoint and just overall good on-ball defenders. On the perimeter, and especially Baba Miller, who's just a problematic player on defense at multiple positions. As you can see here, definitely a spot we want to get involved with. I'm expecting, guys like Christian Anderson to play the entire game. Donovan Atwell, 38 to 40 minutes. Jalen Petty, somewhere in the 30 to 32 range at worst. Lawan Watts, same thing. Like, they'll run those starting guys into the ground. They have to. When you look at the game against Kansas State, they ended up playing a lot of their kind of like third string guys because it was such a blowout. So we saw guys like Nolan Groves, Tyree Bryan, Jazz Henderson, Leon Horner get some minutes that they ordinarily wouldn't get. Also, the freshman 7-footer Mario Akutok played 16 minutes. People might look at that and be like, is he a playable option? I would probably pump the brakes there. However, without Toppin, with Toppin, he's played very minimally. He did have an early season start because of the Toppin injuries to start, but 16 minutes after 7 straight DMPs. So I just be very careful there. He will get a chance to play, especially if Bamji Boy gets into any trouble. Same with Josiah Mosley, who's a little undersized to play the 5. So we could see some minutes here from Mario, but he's definitely more of a secondary look alt type of play. But he's min price. Min price, 9 fantasy points, 10 fantasy points, totally possible. I'm not really a big fan of that extreme stars and scrubs type of build. That just feels to me like it limits you too much. So I won't be going that direction, but I know I've already had some people asking me about him, and that's kind of the way to read it. Bamji Boy is an absolute great play here. 28 fantasy points last time. Now he is 5'4" compared to 4'2", so a little bit harder to get him in there. And I would be worried about the Mocham Baba Miller front court for him and his potential to get into foul trouble. So he's not a slam like he was last slate, but he is going to have that primary spot and handle all the minutes he can at the 5, as long as he doesn't get into foul trouble. So certainly there. You see Lawan Watts projects quite well. He had a nice game, 32 last time out. He's a little more erratic. As a point forward at Washington State, he was like must roster each and every slate for them, right? Not quite the same role here because we do see Petty handle the rock. We see Christian Anderson with the ball in his hands a lot, Atwell chucking. So not quite that same role, but at 6'2", he's certainly playable. I do worry about his minutes some. He's usually the first one to lose minutes out of the starters. So more of a secondary look for me. He does project quite well, as you can see, but going against the model there a little bit. Atwell, 6'3", very playable. He's so reliant on his scoring, though. You see last game, he put up 34.5 fantasy points, which is the most he put up in a month. 26 real, hit 6 triples, 3 rebounds and a steal. And that's pretty common. Here's his last 5 peripherals wise: 3 rebounds, a steal, 4 rebounds, an assist, a steal, 5 rebounds, a steal, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, a steal, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, and a steal. So, a little Cam Thomas at LSU-ish there. So it's a little harder for me to justify paying the price for him. I would probably just go Watts instead, but recognize Atwell's going to chuck a ton of shots here. The value piece that is most viable, Jalen Petty, the freshman, from Rainier Beach, played 31 minutes, put up 21 fantasy points. Dog's going crazy about the mailman. He's had some rough outings. The ASU game was his absolute rock bottom there. Put up only 6 fantasy points, but he played 30 minutes. So it shows you minutes don't always equal opportunities here for Petty, but he's a young guy, still learning, gets to play off the ball a lot, but also handles the rock as well. So he's versatile in that nature, and just playing next to offensive threats like Atwell and Anderson will open up some things for him. He's only priced at 4.6, so definitely some viability there for me. And then, as the payups go, Christian Anderson at 9.5. Really feel like he's going to go under-owned because the masses are going to go to Boozer. It's pretty obvious to me. You've got AJ DeBansta, who's just absolutely a monster, and now he's playing 40 minutes a game. Like, how do you not want to just jam him in there at 11.5? Baba Miller in the same game has been great. Key Hall offensively, he's great. Yaxel from Michigan at 9K, like, he's amazing. There's a lot of great payups, and I think Christian Anderson's going to fall through the cracks a little bit. I think people are going to get these Texas Tech mini stacks, but I think it's going to be like Petty and Watts, Bamji Boy, Atwell. I think we're going to see a lot more of that as opposed to Anderson. So from a leverage standpoint, I automatically like Anderson there. Love the fact that he's going to play 38 to 40 minutes because he has to. He's going to take 15 plus shots. His assist rate this year is astronomically high. He's finding a way to get it done, and he's a 3-level scorer. So love Christian Anderson. I think that 40 plus seems like an inevitability. The model agrees there. 4.2x for Christian Anderson at that price. Sign me up, and we save a little bit. We save $1,000 from Cam Bruiser. That $1,000 can be used to upgrade any number of other spots for us. Cincinnati standpoint, I like Baba Miller. He's a great overall play because I think he's going to get Bamji Boy into foul trouble early. Now Miller's great shot blocker. He contributes in a myriad of ways, and he's an elite rebounder. With no JT Toppin, I would think Baba Miller double-double is a foregone conclusion. I'll be looking to bet his props today for rebounding and double-doubles. Played 39 minutes in their game against Kansas. He's been playing over 33 pretty consistently in conference play. So he's out there doing things. 7K for Mo Chom's a little harder to get to, but he put up 42 against Kansas and Flory Badunga. Now you take JT Toppin out of the equation. Josiah Mosley might have to check him. The freshman might have to check him. And then Bamji Boy a little bit. Like, who's actually going to be able to guard Chom for 30 plus minutes today? I don't know. He's put up 28 plus fantasy points in 3 straight games, seemingly all the way healthy now at 7K. I don't think he's getting nearly enough respect here from the model. You see he's at 27 minutes down here at 3.2x. I think he's going to be better than that. So he's a little bit of maybe what I'd call a sneakier play. I think people are going to overlook him somewhat, even though he's been really good. And there's a ton of options on this slate, but he makes sense as a mid-range, kind of more balanced approach to the slate. Chom is your guy. Trust him more than I do guys like Day Thomas, Jizzle James, the perimeter options for Cincy, no thanks. And if I'm paying for Anderson, I'm probably not paying for Miller, although I do like the spot. I can just get a discount with Chom. So coming out of this game, lower owned Christian Anderson and Mo Chom for me, please and thank you. All right, moving on to the next game here. We have Minnesota and Michigan. Michigan's currently a 21.5 point favorite. That line was 22.5 last night. Total of 145.5. Minnesota, they're down Crocker Johnson now. He's been out the last couple of games. Minnesota's just, they're ailing. They're down to their last 6 or 7 guys. It's brutal. Michigan isn't going to have to do a whole lot to beat them. My main concern here is that it turns into such a vicious blowout that we see starters get pulled quickly. Mara and Morris Johnson usually the first to lose those minutes, and the guards all rotate. So they're all going to be stuck in the mid-20s to at best 29 to 30 mark, unless Minnesota somehow, some way makes this competitive. And I just don't know that I see that happening. So it does lower the Michigan plays for me. There is some value to be had on Minnesota simply because all of their guys that are left standing have to play 35 plus minutes. And Michigan's defense we've seen has been beatable, especially in some more marquee games. And I just don't know how serious they're going to have to take this. They do play on Friday, so only a couple of days away, a road game against Illinois. They finished the season with a road game against Iowa the following Thursday, and then Sunday, March 8th, before conference tournaments begin in the Big Ten, a home game against Michigan State, which is going to be an absolute war. So they have a tough schedule. So this is kind of an easier, kind of their last easy game, quote unquote. They may look ahead, so I can see why that line's being bet down. I'm not going to touch it personally because I don't think Michigan even has to really try that hard to beat this team by 30 at home. I really don't. Had this game been at the barn in Minnesota, I think my opinion would be a little bit different, but that's where we stand right now. So Grayson Groves, 5'5". He's one of the more interesting value plays. Now, he's not a true value at 5'5". He's going to, cost you a little bit more than if he would have been at 4K, but he's still at 35 minutes, projects pretty well because he's had to do so much now with Crocker Johnson out. Isaac Asuma, I always like him, but 6'7", almost 7K, that's a little bit too expensive. Reynolds, Darkin, guys like that, just not going to get there with them. And Cade Tyson, same thing at 8K. He's going to chuck up a lot of shots, and he may get there on volume alone. But, man, I just think there's so many better spots there for us to target besides Minnesota. On the Michigan side, Morris Johnson at 7K, real solid floor play. I don't know that he's going to be on the seat winner tonight or the jam winner. But, just in terms of safety, high floor plays, Morris Johnson will get you what you need, at 28 to 30 mark. I feel pretty confident in that. Mara's there at 7.3. I'm just worried about his minutes. If he gets to the 25, 26 minute mark, should make value for you still, but why risk it? Yaxel at 9K, safety there, but we've seen in blowouts, Yaxel does lose that production. Let's see if we can go to a comparable game here where a lot of us were on Michigan guys. It turned into just an absolute debacle of a game because they blew them out. Let me pull up Yaxel's logs. I can tell you exactly which game it is once I see it. So the Penn State game, he put up 29.8 fantasy points, played just 25 minutes because of the massive blowout. So it was 110 to 69. They probably won't do that to Minnesota, but if it's 30 plus points, Yaxel's playing mid 20s. He only had 6 actual points in that game, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. Like, he did a lot of other things peripheral wise, but he's just not going to get enough minutes in a game like this to really hit that ceiling. So for me, I'd take the discount with Morez or probably more likely just pass on this game altogether. When you look at the Penn State game, Morez played 17 minutes. He had some early foul trouble, put up 22. They're just not going to have to do a lot, I don't think. If you want to get a little bit more risky with it, you're running multiple lineups. I think this is a spot where Trey McKinney, sitting there at 4.4, could make some sense. LJ Kaysen at 4.5. Some of those younger guards who are going to get a lot of opportunity in the second half to shoot. I think those guys could pay off, but certainly not a main team play. I'll be interesting to see if Namari Burnett, who's down at 3.9, gets any kind of chalk on some of the reduced slates. The 2, 3, and 4 games we've seen Burnett be quite popular. He put up 43 in that blowout against Penn State. So I wonder if people look at this, say, hey, last time they really blew the doors off someone, he put up this number. He took a shit ton of shots. What was it? 16 total. 10 of them were from long range, which he hit 70% on 10 attempts. That's something I'll be curious to see. I won't be rostering him, but hey. All right, moving on. We have Tennessee versus Missouri. This is actually a really going to be an awesome game to watch. At the moment, it's Tennessee minus 2.5. This was 3.5 earlier in the day. Hope if you looked at it at all. Hopefully you got on it. I think Missouri is certainly live on the money line here, which is currently plus 140. 2.5 now, significantly worse number than we were getting. I think that they definitely cover at home here, but I think they win. I think Missouri has the chops to win, and this is a game that has kind of sneaky game stack written all over it, because we're not looking at a supremely high total here at 144.5. A lot of times on these bigger slates, we've seen it time and time again. When more casual players come into it, or even regulars, they automatically look at the higher total games, and that's what they reduce their player pool to. So I think this Missouri-Tennessee game, because of the lower total, is going to get overlooked, and I think that's a very big mistake. And I've said that for many years, looking at games that quote unquote might be a little more of a slog, defensive oriented, like, oh, we got to stay away from them. But there's some really solid performers in this game that I want exposure to. Talking about the injury situation here first for both teams. JP Estrella for Tennessee, currently questionable. I would say the foot issue that he's dealing with makes him more doubtful than probable, but we'll see. And then on the Missouri side, it's the, no new injuries, same guys that have been out, Javon Porter, Bodang, nothing to really worry about there. Tennessee side, Nate Ament, he's 8'6", so he's in that second tier of pay-ups. I do have concerns about using him today. He continues to, I have him in high stakes dynasty, so I was a believer from day one, but and he's been playing quite well. He's put up 40 plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 6. I'm definitely, never going to fully write him off, but I don't think this is necessarily the spot to pay up for him. Same could probably be said for Jacoby Gillespie at 8.8, although I do like Gillespie, and he does project over 4X along with Ament, who you see there. In a close game, we're going to see 39 minutes from Gillespie, high octane facilitator, will take a ton of threes. If it's a game where he's on, he's hitting 40, 45, 50%, he can really put together a huge slate breaking score. We've seen him put some 40s up recently. We've seen him put a 50 up earlier this year. I believe it was against Rutgers. He's definitely a guy to consider here, even at that 8.8 tag. So those are your upper tier plays on Tennessee. With Estrella ailing, we've seen Felix Okpara, Jalen Carey, and Dwayne Brown pick up those minutes. Okpara and Carey as the starters. Now, Okpara's been dealing with his own issues. He's been in and out. He was pretty healthy 2 games ago. He ended up playing one of his best games in quite a while in that game against Oklahoma, 35 minutes, put up 33.2 fantasy points, back to playing only 16 minutes there against Vanderbilt. So the up and down nature of his minutes at 5'6" probably keeps him out of our main team player pool. I do think we see a lot of Jalen Carey in people's lineups tonight. He's only 4'3". He's played 26 and 24 minutes in each of the last 2 as a starter. Man, he just offensively, he's challenged. Let's just be honest with ourselves about that. He is getting volume. He's taken 5+ shots in 3 straight games, but he's making a very low percentage. What he has going for him is the fact that he rebounds at a high level. He's not a threat to block shots. He's not a threat to get steals. He'll get an assist if he falls into one. But really at 4'3", you're hoping that he gets 7 to 10 rebounds, and then whatever on top of that he can give you. It's a very cheap price, which makes him worthwhile. And you can see here the minutes that I've set aside for him at 20, which may be a little bit low. That's been where he's about. He does project over value. If we think he gets, if he's managed to play 24, 25, he pushes into that 5X range. So I would expect him to be fairly highly owned and might be the highest owned value on the entire slate. Now, I do like a slight pivot to Dwayne Brown. I've been a huge fan of his pretty much the entire season when he's gotten his opportunity. And it's taken some injuries and some other things for him to get those opportunities. But once he's gotten those opportunities, the freshman has looked like the real deal. Like when Ament goes to the draft after this year and Okpara, who I think is out of eligibility, we're talking about Dwayne Brown being a potential all-SEC performer next year. Granted, he doesn't get pulled away by someone else with an NIL bag. Now, he played 30 minutes in that close game against Vanderbilt because of Okpara unable to play a lot, carries fouls as well, and being offensively challenged. Brown can actually hit jumpers, and he has a post move set that's pretty decent. He doesn't shoot threes yet, and he has foul issues of his own, yes, but when he gets it on the block, he's a lot better than I think people realize. 30 and 21 minutes over the last 2 games. When you look at what he did during those stretches, he was really good, especially late in the game against Oklahoma, put up 20 and then around 17 fantasy points there in the Vanderbilt game. But in the games where Okpara was out completely and Estrella was ailing, 30 fantasy points against Auburn in 34 minutes, 27 fantasy points against Kentucky in 24 minutes. He's had some really strong performances and he's only 4-1. So big time leverage spot there, knowing that Carey is going to probably be extremely chalky. We're getting an opportunity here to kind of pivot towards Dwayne Brown. And he's cheap enough to roll in your main lineup too. But understand the risks there. But if it pays off the, possibly 40% owned Carey to 5% owned Brown, if he outscores Carey, you're just going to be so far ahead of the rest. It makes a lot of sense. So Balky in the house says green screens and window trips. What is up, my brother? Good to see you. Good to see you. I was going to do the recording. So I got like one game in recorded. And then I realized with the StreamYard setup that I didn't have a way to actually post it. They're having problems with Twitter right now. So I had to do it live. Okay, we'll do it live. So that's what we're doing. We're doing live. But I'm glad you're showing up and trickling in here. We're not getting a lot of our normal user base simply because the Twitter link is not working, but that's okay. We'll spam the YouTube link around later. You guys can help me out with that. On the Missouri side, there's definitely some plays here. Let's do this. I think that Missouri's better than what the model says and better than what other people were probably going to be thinking as well. Like they're going to be under-owned, and I think that's a mistake. Jaden Stone especially, whose points prop is like 12.5 for this game. I think he hits a bit much higher number than that. He's been scoring 17 to 20 real. We've seen Jacob Cruz and up until recently, Anthony Robinson and Sebastian Mack all kind of play their way out of the rotation. Cruz was putting up huge numbers at the beginning of conference play, and now he's seeing 5 minutes per game if he's lucky. Stone, now healthy, he's playing 34 plus minutes and taking every shot possible. So he's a very strong play at 6'5", kind of fits in that mid-range tier balance build that we were talking about. I do very much so like Trent Pierce at 6'3". I know he doesn't project as well here, but Pierce has been one of my guys, quote unquote. So do like him. And then I kind of feel like T.O. Barrett is a strong main team look. Now you'll see Sean Phillips at 5K projects well, yes, but there's too much risk there in a main look. I think Phillips is going to find himself in foul trouble here against the Vols front court. So he's really not a play for me, but T.O. Barrett is. Barrett played just 19 minutes against Arkansas. He couldn't get a shot off. Like the defensive pressure and the athleticism of Arkansas made him very uncomfortable. And T.O. Barrett is still a relatively green prospect, who only recently got into the starting lineup. He's a sophomore this year. Didn't play a bunch as a freshman. And really was just coming off the bench, playing 15 to 20 minutes, had some good games. But the end of January, he got in the starting lineup, and he's played big minutes, 39, 30, 33, 32, 30, and 32. Now, he did find himself in foul trouble against Arkansas as well, which led to him playing just 19 minutes. And it was a terrible game. He put up just 14 fantasy points. But you look at the game before that against Vanderbilt, in 32 minutes, he put up 30, 16 points, but he also had 2 steals, 5 assists, 2 rebounds. We like those peripherals. Game against Texas A&M in 33 minutes, he put up a 34.5, 17, 3 and 4 with 3 steals. Like those are the type of games T.O. Barrett is capable of. And at one point during the beginning of February, he put up 30 plus fantasy points in 4 of 5 games. Now, 2 of his last 3, he's been under 20, and that's going to keep his ownership down. But I think this is a buy low opportunity here on T.O. Barrett. On Jaden Stone, and I just don't think enough people are looking at Missouri here. So again, sneaky game stack, a Stone Barrett with Brown on the other side makes a lot of sense. Of course, got Mark Mitchell. He's a little higher than I want to pay at 8.3. I kind of liked it when he was in that 7K range for a time, especially last year. People don't really realize that he's been Iron Man for Missouri. He's playing basically the entire game. The extra period against Oklahoma, late January, played 42 minutes, 39 against Texas, 39 against Arkansas, 36 against Vanderbilt, 38 against Texas A&M. He's playing high minutes, very, very high minutes. So, at least he's going to be out there on the floor, and you know what you're getting with Mark Mitchell. And he has guard forward eligibility, which is nice, gives us that flexibility to kind of move our lineups around and do what we need to do. All right. Let's move on to the next game here. Where are we at here? Time was 56 minutes. Okay, yeah, we're going to keep cruising. Auburn versus Oklahoma. This is a very interesting game. Betting-wise, all over Oklahoma. All over Oklahoma. It's a 2.5-point spread in favor of Auburn, total of 156.5. Again, all over Oklahoma. There's only one other bet on the entire board today that I'm higher on, and the line has been moving. I'll talk about it at the end here. The line's moved a little bit, so I don't know if it's even going to be a play anymore. But this one I'm heavy on. I identified a very clear DVP spot. We're doing some updates to the projections here, so this might be. Give me a second. Let me look at my man Tate Davis. All right. All right, yeah, we've done some revisions here, so let me fix this. So very clear DVP spot that has emerged. And I'm going to do some manual refinements to these as well. So you're seeing some high numbers on certain players like a Nigel Pack, who tends to always project well, but if you've rostered Nigel Pack anytime this month or last, you'll know how inconsistent he can be. Anyways, against Auburn, very clear DVP has emerged, and the masses just haven't figured it out. Guards against Auburn has always been a thing because they typically, maybe not as much under Stephen Pearl, but they typically play fast. Guards get a lot of shots off, whatever. Front court players, primary centers, and power forwards have absolutely dominated Auburn. It's not like Auburn, isn't a good front court team. They're 8th in offensive rebounding efficiency. Now they're 262nd in defensive rebounding efficiency, but they get a lot of second, third, and fourth opportunities because of their elite offensive rebounding. They get steals. They hold their own on the glass. They're not a big shot blocking team, and that might have some to contribute. Key Hall plays a lot of 3 and 4, but he's not a big defensive guy. Keyshawn Murphy plays the 5 for them. He's a little undersized. He actually does block shots, but he gets into foul trouble. They have freshmen that man the 4, sophomore that mans the 4-5. Like, they're pretty young down low, so it makes sense why they've struggled against front court options. Now, this put me on Malachi Moreno last game, and he had a really nice start, and he had 7.7 rebounds, but just the 24 minutes because we know Kentucky's front court is a disaster, and their rotation is frustrating. We talked about that an hour ago when we started the show with Kentucky. But when you go through and start picking out the SEC games against Auburn, a very clear pattern here, and that DVP really it gets established quite quickly. Now, Mississippi, so we'll just go back and we'll say the bad with the good. So before Kentucky, Mississippi State, which was a loss, 91-85. That was my man Josh Hubbard's 46-point game that he had. Woo-woo, Josh Hubbard, 70 fantasy points. Let's go. But we're seeing guys rebound against them quite well. And it's bigs and guards alike that can rebound at a high level or are capable of it. And Josh Hubbard had 9 rebounds in that game. Was it an outlier? You could say yes, but no, it really wasn't. Now let's go to Arkansas. This was an 88-75 victory for Arkansas. Malik Thomas, who is in the perimeter, had 10 rebounds there. Trevon Brazile, 7 and 4 blocks in the post. Very good peripheral stats there. Darius Acuff did his thing there. We know that too. So let's keep going. Vanderbilt, 84-76 victory for Vanderbilt. Vandy, 7 rebounds for Devin McLaughlin. He's an undersized 4-5 type of player. 7 rebounds, 3 blocks. Got after it in the post. Did end up fouling out, but he put up those blocks. He got those rebounds. We saw a lot of scoring from our guy, Tyler Tanner. And the other low block option there, Jalen Washington, put up 22 and 5. Okay, let's keep going. Alabama, which was a lot of losses here for Auburn. 96-92 victory for Alabama. In that one, we saw rebounds of 5 for LeBaron Fellon, 6 for Amari Allen. Aiden Sherrill didn't do a lot on the rebounding side, but he blocked 4 shots. Very distinct pattern here. And even Charles Bediako, who has been ruled inactive or ineligible again, give it up, Charles, had 12 points and 3 rebounds in that one in limited minutes, especially in the second half. All right, let's go to Tennessee, 77-69, a victory for the Vols. Nate Ament, 22-8 in the interior. Dwayne Brown, when he was starting for the injured Felix Akbara. Brown in 34 minutes, 10 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. We like it. A block and 2 steals. Front court guys, absolutely nuking. Off the bench, Jalen Carey, 13-8. Front court options, nuking. All right, let's go to Texas. They beat Texas 88-82. Good job, Auburn. You beat someone. In that one, Mattis Vadiakis, who's the 7-footer there, was in foul trouble most of the game. So 12-5. So not a great game for him in that one. But Dallin Swain, who basically plays 1 through 5 on this team, absolute stud, 30.7 rebounds, 4 assists. Great game for him, right? All right, but not so much for the front court. Let's look at Florida. They beat Florida 76-67. I don't know how they did it. They played it today. I think they'd lose by 30. In that one, Thomas Hoff, 27-10 with 2 blocks. Alex Condon, only 1 point, but he had 9 rebounds and 3 blocks. Ruben Cheniello, 10.7 rebounds. I think this is the game before Ruben Cheniello became like prime Dennis Rodman, Karl Malone. Distinct DVP here in SEC play. Do you need to hear more? Ole Miss. They beat Ole Miss 78-66. What did our guy Malik Dia do in that game? Well, nothing, because he got benched. Because Chris Beard, he's benching guys left and right. You don't know what's going to happen here. Nobody really did good in that game because of all the benching. So Auburn did win that one. So DVP, awful in that one. But we have 2 examples of bad. We have, 6 examples of good. And we're just going back in the row. South Carolina, 71-67 victory over them. You wouldn't think of Kobe Knox as being a big-time rebounder. He had 9 there for them. Miles Stude, 9 for them. Mongolian Mike, who's basically 6'10 and plays multiple positions. He had 5 rebounds, a couple of blocks, a pretty solid overall performance for him as well. They're undersized. They don't have a front court player that can really take advantage. So the guards and wings had to do it there. But you see blocks and rebounds for the athletic, taller guards that they had. Missouri, 84-74 loss. In that game, Mark Mitchell had 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and a block with a steal. Sean Phillips was in foul trouble. He tends to do that. Trent Pierce, the near 7-footer who was not starting in that game yet, Jacob Crusto was. It's kind of his coming out party. He had 18 points, a couple of steals, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists in 27 minutes. So the archetype here there's 2. Front court options that are strong rebounders, have their rebounding elevated. They block shots. Primary guards, athletic guards, maybe bigger guards outside of Josh Hubbard, who's not a bigger guard, but he's a god, also have dominated this Auburn defense. So 2 archetypes that we can look at. Do you want to hear one more? Let's hear one more. Let's hear one more just in case that wasn't enough. Georgia, a overtime win by Georgia, 104-100 against Auburn. In that game, Samto Cyril, who's not really known as a scorer by any means, 15 points, 6 rebounds, 6 blocks. It's a pretty good game. And for good measure, athletic guards, Jeremiah Wilkinson, he had 6 rebounds, 31 points. Smurf Melender, who's a small guard, he had 24 points. So really, it almost sounds like everybody against Auburn is a strong option, but I want a highly athletic rebounding / shot blocking big man, or I want a slashing 3-level scoring aggressive guard / wing against this Auburn team. Okay. And that is why we're seeing some of these projections look so good. We're going to want some exposure here to this Oklahoma team, and don't be afraid. I know Oklahoma hasn't really treated us very well. They haven't been the most consistent. They're not a team that we really want to rely on, but we definitely want to look to them here. And you see right at the top of the list there, Nigel Pack, Tay Davis, and Xavier Brown. Now, if you want to put your nuts on the table truly and stack all 3 together, that could be a hell of a lineup. It could also send you to the showers very early in the night too. So I got to say, I love Tay Davis tonight. Probably my favorite play. 9.3% offensive rebounding rate. He's not much of a shot blocker in this Oklahoma system. He's early in his career at Seton Hall and Notre Dame. He was a bit of a shot blocker, but offensive rebounding is really his forte. I think he's knowing that Auburn's defensive rebounding rate is pretty trash, one of the worst in the SEC. I think we see a lot of offensive putbacks for Tay Davis. So that's a big thing. We'll look at his rebounding props. Xavier Brown, Nigel Pack, especially 44% 3-point shooter. A little bit on the smaller side, but a small guard just did destroy them in Josh Hubbard. Xavier Brown, who capable, physical type guy. These guys are going to do well. I think we are going to see Oklahoma not only win as a home underdog, but also, possibly 2 Oklahoma players end up on the optimal. Not going to try Mo Wag. Mo Wag is cheap. He technically fits the mold, especially as a offensive rebounder. 17.1% offensive rebounding rate. Which is 8th best in the country, which is phenomenal, and number 1 best in the SEC. Mo Wag out of the Bronx. Now he's a extreme fouler, 7.1 fouls per 40 most of the time, especially against what we consider A-tier competition. So he's likely going to end up just getting into foul trouble, which is going to severely impact his minutes as usual. He is also above 5K. I have this flow chart for Mo Wag. Very simple. Is Mo Wag 5K or higher? If yes, proceed to fade. Is Mo Wag 5K, 4.9K or less? If yes, proceed to roster. You see, he put up 35 against Texas A&M last time out in 25 minutes. He had 12 points, 13 rebounds. That's the good. The bad, the game before that against Tennessee, he was only able to play 10 minutes because of severe foul trouble. He put up 4.2 fantasy points. Wide range. And that's not even his floor. 4.2 is not the guy's floor. What is his floor, you ask? Well, it's negative. He has put together in his career 2 instances of negative fantasy points. One this year in a game against Missouri when he had negative 0.5 fantasy points in just 12 minutes of action. No shot attempts, no rebounds, just 1 turnover. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for collecting an NIL check. But that's horrible. So you know what you're going to get there with Mo Wag at 5'2". He can really damage your lineups. Alt builds, for sure. Now, you might be wondering where Darian Reed comes into play for this. I've been a little bit disappointed in Darian Reed, to be honest with you. Maybe a little bit of a non-con hero. He had some nice games early on and has kind of struggled in SEC play. 5'3" is a very playable buy low spot for him, but I don't know. I just don't think the system's right for him. I think he needs to be kind of packing his bags and heading for greener pastures somewhere else. Maybe a little bit of a faster pace type of system than like he came from with Bama, right? Because I don't know that Oklahoma's the right fit for him. So not really interested in rostering him. His minutes have been diminishing as well. Really just going to keep it to Pack, Brown, or Davis. And right now I really love Tay Davis at just 6'2", but they're all super cheap. Auburn side, Sean Murphy just had one of his best 2-3 game stretches here. 46, 13, 29, and 44. So it's caused his price to balloon quite a bit at 8.3. I'm not paying that price for him. Todd Pettiford, who I love, has not been very consistent. We know the upside is there. 7.3 is just okay. And then you get down to the cheapies, younger players like Elijah Freeman, Sebastian Williams-Adams. Both are interesting looks here against Oklahoma. It's not like Oklahoma has been like world beaters either. They've given up some pretty big stat lines to players. The main concern there with Freeman is he fouls a lot. Williams-Adams, same thing. Probably a secondary options at best for us there. What's up, Craig? How you doing, buddy? Good to see you. You guys are trickling in on the YouTube there. I'm a little upset that they don't. It's been 5 days of this. I haven't been on StreamYard in a week, but I noticed there was an error message that they put up for Twitter, and the Twitter link's not working for everybody. So that severely hampers our exposure. But you know what? That's okay, because the tried and true fans of the show are here and ready to rock. Appreciate you stopping by, Craig. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to the next game here, which is Miami, the Hurricanes versus Florida State. Oh, damn. See, that's the crappy thing about YouTube, Jamie. Says, hopefully Walt's getting a nice kickback from the 45-second cruise ship ad I was just forced to watch. Someone is. Someone is. Sorry that you had to endure that. If you go on my Twitter profile and click my picture, it's in red. So you can watch the live stream from Twitter if you want to avoid all that. I don't know why it's not showing up. It seems like something they should fix like pretty quickly. All right. Miami versus FSU. Let's kick it into high gear here. It's 10:30, and I want to get to doing some other stuff here and getting ready for the rest of the night and combine props that I'm working on for FTN. All right, so Miami, Florida, they're 2.5-point favorites, total of 153.5. These two teams did play earlier. It's an interesting game here. Florida State did win on the road 65-63 in their previous meeting. I do like the Canes here. Malik Renew shook off. He looked like he was going to be in, like he had some kind of hip injury, but then it came out that he was dealing with migraines, and migraines are no joke. I also suffer from migraines from time to time. And when that happens, it absolutely knocks me out of commission. So I can't imagine trying to play basketball at a high level with a migraine. So I feel for him there. But he did play his usual minutes there, right around 28 to 30 in their last game. But you can definitely tell he's had problems as he's been under 30 fantasy points in each of the last two games, which has caused his price to tumble from 9.4 down to 8.1, which puts him very firmly into playability for us. And I don't expect a lot of ownership here either. The first game, 65-63, in that one, Robert McRae put up 24 and 4 along with 3 blocks. Just a massive, massive game for him. Leger Jones had 9 rebounds. Nobody else really with a stat line that was noteworthy. McRae just hard carried. On the Miami side, Shelton Henderson had 18 and 8, pretty solid for him. Malik Renew had 16 and 3. Ernest Uday had 3 stocks, 9 rebounds, 10 points. True Washington was terrible. And Trey Donaldson was kind of mediocre at 11 and 5. So definitely solid. And they didn't get a lot of help from their bench. We know they're going to run a 6-7 man rotation. So lots of minutes here for the Miami guys, which is why they project fairly well. Ernest Uday at 6'4", the best foul risk, but he's been playing well. If you look at the production of Uday here, especially recently, rock solid, 33, 20, 24, and then there was a 16 wedged in there. I don't know that he's going to hit a high watermark here, but anything above 25, 26, I think is a pretty big win there. But I would rather find my way up to Malik Renew, I think, or even up to Shelton Henderson for a few hundred more. Just feel a little more confident there. But the matchup individually against Florida State's front court is premier. Shelton Henderson there, the freshman at 7K. He's been rock solid as well, putting up right around 4X consistently at this current price. I think he's fairly safe from a high floor perspective. And then, like I said, Malik Renew at 8.1, probably 5% owned today. I'm going to be very tempted to lock him in. I am going to check out his, where he's at with his migraines and any other injury stuff. Because like I said, clearly the last 2 games, he has not looked himself one bit. You have a very cheap price for True Washington at 5.4 and Dante Allen at 5.1. They're pretty much sharing that other guard slot right now. Washington missed some time. True Washington has been rostered by anyone, and his price is low because he's had some pretty porous games coming back from his injuries. But if you dive deeper, you'll see he's put up 21 plus fantasy points in 4 of his last 5, and he's kind of done that quietly. So at 5.4, True Washington might be a kind of a sneaky last man in type of play, more so than Dante Allen, who being in the starting lineup, I think has hampered Allen a little bit as he's just not getting the shot attempts that some of the other guys are. On the FSU side, Robert McRae, he's a slate breaker. He's put up 40 plus in 3 of his last 4. He's put up 39 plus in 4 of his last 5. He just contributes in a myriad of ways. High assist rate, high usage rate, and he's taken on a alpha scoring role here down the stretch. And Florida State is just, suddenly, they're with 14 and 13. Not going to be anything that's in the tournament, but this feels like a team that's going to cause problems in the ACC. They've won 3 in a row. Granted, 2 of those games, Virginia Tech. Okay. Boston College. Nah. And the Clemson win. Clemson suddenly falling apart, and that was a road win over the weekend against Clemson that nobody gave them credit for. So if they are to beat Miami here, very good chances that they just win out the rest of the season and on a 7-game winning streak. Georgia Tech on Saturday, Pittsburgh the following Wednesday, and then they close out the season against SMU at home. So all of those winnable games here, and Miami is a winnable game too, especially if Renew's not 100%. So a lot to play for here for Florida State. They do play at the 24th fastest pace in the country, so there's going to be a lot of possessions here. Should be a much higher scoring game than the 65-63 slog we saw prior when these two teams faced, and we want exposure. I think McCray is a great overall option if you're not going to take one of the top pay-ups there at the 9K plus range. What's going on there? He makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like, if he draws line in the sand and say, I'm not going to pay up above this 8.85 range, McCray could be a flagship piece for your lineup in this spot. I do truly believe that. There are some other looks, guys like Leger Jones, who has been extremely good here in the latter part of the ACC schedule. He's priced at 6.8, so I'm a little uncomfortable with that, but I might look at some of his props. He's had some huge rebounding outputs here recently. He wiped away the Clemson game, which they won, but was a pretty tough overall game for him. 9 rebounds, 7, 13, 5, 5, 8, 12, 9, and 10. That's going back to mid-January. He's had only one game since mid-January where he didn't put up 5+ rebounds, and that was the most recent against Clemson. So he's rebounding at a very high level. So we'll look at his props for that. I don't know if we're going to roster him at 6'8". Chauncey Wiggins there at 5'8", standing in the corner shooting threes. That's his thing. And then you've got the cheapies, Martin Somerville there at 4.4 and Thomas Basong at 4K. Both are usable pieces. We do have some injury designations here. Alex Steen, who is upgraded to probable, but did have a questionable tag yesterday. We'll see. That always makes me nervous when there's a surprise pop-up on the report and it's unspecified, or they don't give a reason. And the same thing with AJ Swinton, who was questionable 2 days ago, now upgraded to probable, but that was another unspecified thing. They're calling it a minor injury, but it could definitely impact minutes. And if that's going to happen, Somerville and Basong will see their minutes kind of push up from there. And you see Somerville have him projected for about 26 minutes. That would be pretty close to value for him. Basong at about 25 minutes, also pretty close to value. This is a very good game stack. I like this one for tournaments. It would not surprise me if a 4 to 6 man stack of this game wound up semi-optimal. It's a little aggressive, agreed, but I certainly want exposure to this one. I think it's going to be very high scoring compared to their last outing. The total comes in at 153.5. So in this one, I do like Miami -2.5, and I like the over 153.5. Not official plays, but those are both pretty strong leans for me at the moment. All right, moving right along here. Baylor versus Arizona. Arizona, man, Arizona's on a tear. You got injured players, you've got guys playing through illness. It doesn't matter. They're just wrecking everybody. They stopped the bleeding there. They lost a couple of games, and now they're back to their winning ways. And from a DFS standpoint, Baylor is a sieve of a team this year. Not what we're used to seeing from Coach Drew's teams. Shorthanded Arizona, a favorable matchup, a situation where we're expecting a relatively high-scoring game. Arizona comes in as 8.5-point favorites on the road and a total of 154.5. This is a spot where I think the over does hit. You can see here Motius Krivas at 6'5". Very strong play. Jaden Bradley at 7'2", Tobawaka 6'1", Ivan Krachkov at 6'6", and then Braden Berries at 6'9". All solid options. And then if you're buying in here, Anthony Del Orso, the Campbell transfer, the last 2 games, he has been absolutely scorched earth, torching. I don't know if that can continue. He did just pop up on the report as questionable. So that's not great for Arizona. I don't know that he's going to miss. I think this is a kind of a preliminary thing. He's put up 30+ in back-to-back games. I am not prepared. So let me put it this way for you. This is how I operate. You guys may operate differently, and that's fine. I missed out on Del Orso. I mean, he hasn't been good at this level. He was really good at Campbell. He hasn't been good for Arizona in any amount of minutes that he's been given. So I didn't get him in the BYU game when he put up 30 at 3.8. I didn't get him in the Houston game where he put up 35 at 4.5. I missed out on those two. So I'm just okay with the fact that I missed those games. I'm not now going to be late to the party and pay an all-time high price on him at 5.8, chasing that performance. If he beats me at 5.8, he beats me at 5.8. That's pretty much where I'm at. The fact that Awaka's only 300 more, the fact that Krivas is less than 1K more, Karachnikov less than 1K more, Beery's just over 1K more. I mean, we're talking about Anthony Del Orso, and I'm not trying to disrespect him because he is good offensively, and I could show you his sophomore highlights from Campbell. The dude's a bucket getter. But I'm not taking his price over some of these other options, proven options at this level. Now it is Baylor. Baylor's got to win a game. They got to at least compete here. It is a softer matchup, so I get it. We do still have a, up in the air status for Koa Pete, officially questionable. I doubt we see him play today, but we'll monitor the situation. Dwayne Aristot is out again as well. He's dealing with a severe illness, which has been going around the collegiate basketball world. So a lot to like there for the Arizona side, as you can see. Baylor side, prices are up overall. Isaac Williams had been very strong, but his price is now up to 6-1. No thank you. Dan Skilling's minutes are starting to ramp up. Michael Rataj minutes are ramping down, or going down, I should say. We've had some success with Tunde Yasefu. He's priced at nearly 9K, not really the matchup for it. Cameron Carr at 9.2 has been a high usage guy, likely first round draft pick at this stage. Although if he's not a lottery pick, he should clearly come back. It's an Arizona mini stack or nothing here, and I think it would be foolish to not have at least two Arizona plays here. Which two Arizona plays are there? Well, that's going to be up to you. If you're running multiple lineups, you can just rotate them. If you're a single entry person, then, some tough decisions will have to be made. Pinning me down, gun to the head, forcing me into a decision, I would probably go Braden Beery's because 6'9", we're getting a buy low spot there. I expect reduced ownership. He's looked horrible the last two games because of this illness that's flying around. I suspect he will be a full go today, and that reduced price just gives way too much upside there. The second play for me would not be Karachnikov because he's been so good, and I think that's where people would go. I'll take the $100 discount and go to Krivas. The model agrees there. But yeah, the Burris and Krivas, probably the two Arizona guys that I will come out of in my main lineup here. All right, next game, USC versus UCLA. UCLA. This is a total of 150.5. UCLA 7.5 point favorites. Chad Baker is back. He is back, which muddies the waters quite a bit here for USC. Starting with them, you'll see there's nobody that really is going to project all that well. Elijah Arenas and Cam Woods are going to play 30-plus minutes. They cannibalize each other to a degree. Chad Baker back in the mix. I have him projected for around 25, 26 minutes. He played 22 minutes off the bench last game. He'll probably even get back in the starting lineup today. We'll see. And then you have Ezra Azor and Jacob Kofi rounding out the front court. And then just a myriad of options coming off the bench in typical Coach Musselman fashion where he just, hot hands it throughout. I with Baker, he's only 6'8". Gosh, maybe a night slate play. I don't think we can get there on our main, but that is a really cheap price for him. If he starts, it'd be hard not to want to play him. On the UCLA side, first, let's say UCLA, what a hell of a comeback win against Illinois. That's an impressive win that will likely stand tall into Selection Sunday. 95-94 overtime win. I mean, they were down by 20 plus at one point. Just absolutely insane insane performance by the Bruins. And then of course, Tyus Edney-like ending there, coast-to-coast layup. Donovan Dent, 14 points, 15 assists, absolutely monster game. Trent Perry had 17 real. Tyler Bilodeau had 18 and 4. Eric Daly had one of his best games of the season, 20 and 6. Xavier Booker off the bench had 16 and 4. And then it's worth noting Sky Clark got the start, played 26 minutes, had 10 points, did foul out. But that was Clark's first start since January 3rd. You might remember he missed about a month of the season. And he came off the bench in his return against Michigan State, played about 16 to 20 minutes in each, and now he's back starting. So interesting look. I think USC's defense I know it doesn't scare anyone. Clark's down there at 5'4", kind of an interesting look. His presence worries me for guys like Trent Perry. Now, Perry ended up playing the most minutes in the overtime and scoring quite a bit, but Clark did foul out. So we have to make that recognition of why Perry's minutes maybe still stayed high because of the overtime and the foul issues. His presence, though, Clark is going to definitely downgrade Perry. So be careful of that. Donovan Dent at 7'9" is a very solid overall option. I actually think we could see him be pretty chalky. And then Tyler Bilodeau and Eric Daly, 6'8" and 5'8", respectively. Daly guard forward eligibility, that's nice, but Bilodeau's just like the preeminent night game or a late slate hammer, or late night hammer, I should say. He's underpriced for where he should be. I mean, he's been putting up 30s with regularity. Why his price drops from, a very minuscule 7'4", 7'5", which I would have been willing to pay that, to 6'8" is beyond me. Sign me up for him at 6'8". I think that's going to be very difficult for me not to have Bilodeau in the lineup. And you can see we've highlighted so many guys from 6 to 8K range. You might not even need to play Christian Anderson with all these strong plays. If it means we don't have to take a shot on Jordan Marsh from USC, Adam the Editor special. All right. Let's go to this last game on the slate here, which is UCF versus BYU. Now, this is a late slate hammer game stack as well. Absolutely love this game, and I think the masses will too. And you're going to see, the projections here are extremely high in this game as well, and it's easy to see why. Injuries galore, shorter rotation from both sides for the most part. Big decision point here. Roster AJ DeBansa and possibly get a 70 here against UCF, which is very real possibility with no Richie Saunders around. Rob Wright is going to play 38 to 39 minutes. DeBansa is going to play 38, 39 minutes. They're both very strong options, and you can see the project. There's a lot of green here in this game. And the prices, they're pretty fair. Right at 7.5, I can get down with that. The 11.5 for DeBansa is where it's going to get really tough. You can see we have him at almost 51 fantasy points, which is well over value. It's very nice to have that in your back pocket. Do want to mention, let me pull up this BYU game right quick. So in the last BYU game, the kind of, undressing of Iowa State there at the Marriott Center, we saw 27 minutes for Mihajlo Boskovic, 13 points, 5 rebounds. Did have some foul trouble, but he shot 8 triples. So Boskovic, who's damn near a 7-footer, but he can shoot, almost seems like, and it's just a one game, so we'll need to see a little bit more, but it seems like he might be a prime candidate to fill in that third scorer role with Richie Saunders gone. Kennard Davis did have 17 points in that game. And honestly, Davis, during his time at Southern Illinois, you can see, high usage rate, high shot rate, like big-time bucket getter at the MVC level. Hasn't necessarily translated here at BYU on a consistent basis, but he can score. But I don't know that he's really going to be able to fill that third scorer role consistently, especially in the tournament. Boskovic, though, I have a lot of interest in. If Keita can stay out of foul trouble, as he did in that game, you see he played 27 minutes, it really kind of frees up Boskovic, because Keita's, despite being 6'7", 6'8", can hang with 7-foot centers. I mean, he's a beefy dude, solid, rebounds at a high level, block shot. It's gonna open up things for Boskovic to step out, drag a defender out. It's gonna just open up the lane for DeMansta, as we saw. A lot of good things coming from that starting lineup that they ran. They've tried to run the other freshman, Alexei Kostic, but he can't defend very well. His shot's not on right now. Abdullah Ahmed, a former G Leaguer, defense is there, but he's offensively challenged. And then Kadim Mbop, 10 rebounds last game. He's probably their best bench piece, and we've seen him play some big minutes here, and he's had some spot starts here and again. So I wanted to highlight Boskovic though, because his rates are fairly solid. He's not the best 3-point shooter from an efficiency standpoint, but the volume's going to suddenly be there. And when you look at the price point here, it certainly, especially if you want to go with that extreme studs and scrubs build, it certainly brings some validity to possibly using him at just 3.6. The 27 minutes is the most he's had this entire season. We're typically going to see 11 to 12 from him most nights. He did play 21 against Arizona in a competitive game, and I think we're going to see him play 20 plus going forward, especially if the starters remain for him, and this matchup against UCF is pretty favorable. So not, falling on my sword saying got to roster him like I have in the past with certain values, but he's somebody I wanted to highlight there for sure and at least bring up because he is somewhat interesting. On the UCF side here, you can see my man Folks projects extremely well. I love Thomas Folks. If Riley Kugel is out once more, we got to just jam Folks in everywhere. And we might have to do that anyways. He's only priced at 6.7K. Kugel missed last game. He suffered the injury 2 games ago, like the very last possession. And it sounds like he's going to be severely limited even if he does play. So it makes me like Folks a lot. This matchup against BYU is pretty favorable in terms of it should be a high pace. BYU 60th in tempo. And then the Johnny Dawkins led UCF, they're about 101, 102 in tempo rankings, but typically always play at a faster pace anyways. These two teams have not played each other yet this year, but we've seen a ton of high scoring spots in UCF games. I mean, even Houston, who's sometimes offensively challenged, as we saw last night, put up 80 against these guys. So this is yet another potential game stack situation, or at least a stacking situation in general. The UCF starters without Kugel, they went Folks, Burke, Stillwell, Bull, and then Chris Johnson stepped into the starting lineup there. Played 22 minutes, 8 points, 5 assists, and a block. I was really surprised. It was a good, efficient game for Johnson. I was really surprised, though, and he was former highly rated recruit out of Texas. Really surprised he didn't take more shots. That was the point. That was the part that kind of disturbed me because I expected him to shoot a lot more. I mean, he's had games where he stepped in and played reduced minutes and taken 8+ shots. The game where he played 25 minutes in a semi-blowout loss to Cincinnati, he put up 31 fantasy points, 16 real, 6 assists on 13 shot attempts. So he's no stranger to volume. He will chuck, and we saw that not Texas, but where was he at? Stephen F. Austin during like exhibition. And he only played 1 game for them last year, but exhibition, like he's no stranger to chucking. And so if he starts again, I do kind of want to go back to him because I don't think people will. People are very fickle in terms of game-to-game basis. It's a lot of what have you done for me lately. Now, he did still put up 18.5 fantasy points last game, even with just 4 shot attempts. And I honestly think in this game, he's probably taking closer to 10 shot attempts if Kugel can't go. We also saw Carmelo Pacheco play last game. He's been upgraded to probable here. There was some questions about him playing. So his presence takes about 8 to 10 minutes out of the pool as well from everyone else. And we did see that mostly impacted Devin Cambridge, who went from playing 24 minutes down to 13 last game. So we'll monitor the Kugel situation. Jermichael Stillwell every week or every game ends up on the injury report. He's officially probable, but their initial report that comes out before every game or the night before, he's always questionable. So I expect him to play. Everybody on UCF is under 7K. Really intriguing. Burks there at 6.5, also a play. Bull at 4.5 for value. Johnson at 4.4. Like I honestly could come out of this with 2 UCF guys, and I don't know that people will be doing that. I think Johnson falls, sub 10%. Folks will probably be like 20-25% because of what he just did in that last game. what was it, against Utah when he put up 30. He's actually put up 30 plus fantasy points in 3 straight games. So very solid, safe overall option. And folks, 26th highest assist rate in the country at 36.1%. And he's shooting 43% from long range, which is not on volume. He's only taken 37 attempts. But the course of his career, he shot about low 30s, upper 20s on about 30 to 40 attempts each season when he was at Louisiana and Milwaukee last year. And he's shooting 43% this year. So a pretty big improvement there for folks. Love him in the spot. BYU, coming off a ridiculous win against Iowa State. What does BYU have on deck? They play West Virginia on Saturday, so certainly not a look-ahead spot here. They've got Cincinnati in the end of the season with Texas Tech, but there might be a little bit of a hangover here. Could be a spot to maybe bet UCF first half, but I'm certainly going to be on folks, especially without Kugel. If Kugel plays, I'll probably still be using him. If anything, that'll just drive his ownership down. BYU side again, Boscovich, certainly intriguing. Rob Wright as a balanced type play at 7.5. And then the decision point that you're going to have to ask yourself, AJ DeBensta, if you do think you're going to roster him or you want to, you need to plug him in first and kind of build from there, because you're going to need 3 values to make it work. To be competitive lineup or the rest of your build, you're going to need 3 values, and certainly have identified some values here as we've talked about. But yeah, that stars and scrubs build gets real shaky after some time. All right. Haranzin 05120 says, yes. Daniel Bryan, let's go. I love that. I love the excitement. I love it. I honestly, I feel bad. I almost feel like a disappointment in some ways, because you guys know, cranking out super shows every other year, damn near every day, 3-4 times a week. And I feel like I haven't, obviously haven't been doing the shows as much. Definitely going to be doing them now. I've been doing a lot of back end stuff, several projects, and trying to build up the community and do great things at FTN, stat rankings, which I did college football stuff for. Like, there's a lot going on. I'm just trying to better myself for. So your guys' continued support has really meant a lot to me. And I do very much appreciate that a lot. All right. Very good. Very good. Now let's do, so that's the end of the slate. We did it. We made it. We got it. Feel pretty good about where we stand here. I'm going to save the full core for the actual community there. And if you are interested in what we have to offer, please reach out to me here at dubdeuces85 on Twitter, dubdeuces85 at Gmail, or on Discord, same name, and get you set up and hooked up and let you know what we got working out here, because I'm going to do a conference tournament previews for every conference tournament. My man Adam will be joining me hopefully on some of those. We're going to do shows for those. We're going to have write-ups. We're going to have projections. We got the Discord cracking. I mean, there's just so much going on, and I think this is going to be our best year ever. You thought last year was great with the Nolan Hodge from UNCW call. Just wait until you see what we have in store for you this tournament. So I'm not going to give a full core just because the community, going to give it to them, but I will say I'm going to be very, very heavy on Thomas Folks, as I mentioned, and probably very, very heavy on Braden Burries. I don't have a core yet anyways to give you, but Burries and Folks, I think are 2 that are going to lead my lineup. And initially starting out, I was planning to just plug in Christian Anderson and work from there, but I don't even know that I need him. And I love Christian Anderson. Don't get me wrong. I love him today. I think he's going to do great. But I think that we're going to be able to achieve some really great things tonight via the old balanced Betty lineup. So I know you guys love that. All right, let's do some. I actually thought you were someone else for a minute. I was like, oh damn, I'm getting some shit talkers. Now I've made it. I don't get a lot of shit talk. I don't know if that's because I haven't quite fully made it yet, or I'm just that much of a likable guy. But the famous Adam here in the flesh, calling me sentimental, saving the core because he knows I will fade. Yeah, Adam is a fader of the core. He likes to roster guys like Jordan Marsh. I don't know if you heard that Marsh line earlier in the show. We'll make him go back on demand and try to find it later. All right. let me share my screen here. Let's do some best bets, prop picks, and then we'll get out of here in good time. Guess I shouldn't be mean to Adam. He might be editing my combine piece later. All right. Here we go. Let's refresh this. So there are 3 on Underdog today. And by the way, Underdog is doing best ball. So it's college football best ball this summer. I'm going to be putting out tons of content for it. I'm really excited about. But they have some college basketball best ball stuff happening for the tournament. Now, the tournament field's not set yet, which makes it pretty difficult. But you can go through drafts on Underdog now and possibly draft players who won't even be in the tournament. So not very EV, but there you have it. Miami, Ohio, Eastern Michigan is on here now. I got to check this out. Some good games on here. I want to go to the Tennessee, here it is, Tennessee, Missouri game, because this is where I had my favorite stuff. Okay, so T.O. Barrett over 7.5 points. Now I got this at 1.06x last night. You see it's down to 0.8x. Barrett's going to score like 10 plus. Give me a break. What is this? What is this number? 7.5 points. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Jaden Stone over 12.5 points. That was also like 1.110 or 10 last night. It's now down to 0.94. So some reduced markers there, but still have the number over 7.5 points for Barrett, over 12.5 points for Stone. Those just light work numbers for those guys. And I also hit last night Felix Okpara over 5.5 points. Yes, he's been banged up a little bit, sick here and there, but 6 points should be definitely achievable for him, assuming he's going to play 20 minutes at least. So that's a little bit of an SGP that you can run there on that Missouri-Tennessee game. Let's get one more freebie out of here that I want to check and see if the number moved at all. Auburn-Oklahoma game, which we're going to be very heavy on as well. Go down to my man Tay Davis. I don't do PRA very often because, as Mike Kutry taught us, it's not a very winning prop. But I do feel like the PRA could be necessary here, or you can go with the PR, but Tay Davis over 20.5 points, rebounds and assists, or the over 18.5 points plus rebounds. I'm all over Tay Davis today against Auburn. He's going to be like 8% owned if that. DVP, as I explained. Let's go. Mid-range lineup. Balanced Betty is looking quite good, isn't it? It's looking quite good. All right. Let's look at the betting stuff real quick. Do 2 best bets. Number 1, hopefully this Louisiana line did not go. Okay, so it's plus 11.5. So I got last night at plus 12.5 against Troy. Troy started the season out as kind of a mid-major darling. They're competing with high majors, smacking guys around. A lot of people like Troy, and I get that. They have fallen off here lately as they limp in. The Sun Belt, aka the Fun Belt, rarely do you want to be laying this many points, 11, 12 points in the Fun Belt. This doesn't make sense. Louisiana has been a team that we've done very well betting-wise. All over them, plus 12.5 last night. I unfortunately did not release that to the masses because I thought we might get a better number. Unfortunately, we got a worse number. So it's plus 11.5 now. There are some better prices out there, minus 105, I believe, on MGM and Bet365. Those are very strong place. I think Louisiana makes this more like a 6-7 point game, 8-point game, and I think they're live to win. You see the money line there at plus 550. So that is bet number 1 that I am very, very high on at the top of my list. Louisiana plus 11.5. We'll see if it goes back to 12.5. It's tricky. Giving those plays at night or the night before are very tricky because it can go either way, right? And sometimes you look like an idiot when it moves against you, and sometimes you look like a genius like Mercyhurst. We got them at this game was the most rigged game ever. Plus 5.5, 6.5 the night before. They closed at minus 2.5. Crazy shit happening there. Crazy stuff. Okay, you got to take that over there. All right, so we're almost done, buddy. All right, and then seen some movement in this Sun Belt game. Coastal Carolina was plus 1.5 last night. Now they're minus 1.5. I do really like the Coastal side in that game, and that was going to be a best bet for me, but not comfortable when that line flipped like that. Some weird stuff happening there, but that's one to keep an eye on. And then number 2, so we're going to give you 2 of them. Missouri. I guess I should spell Missouri, right? God, it's just also gone down. So plus 3.5 last night. I really like Missouri to win this game. I might just take the money line. They're now down to 2.5. Unfortunately, it seems the money coming in there. Still think there's a little bit of value. But I'll just bet Missouri outright. I think they do beat the Vols today. I really honestly do. Don't court storm. You don't need to. Number 22 in the country. There's no reason for it. But I do think Missouri lines up good here against Tennessee. And I do think they ultimately win. So Missouri plus 2.5 is fine. Money line, sprinkle it. I think I'm just going to hit that outright. And then Louisiana plus 11.5, my number one bet of the day. Craig says, is Forsyth a good value? Missed that game. Yeah, he's fine. I didn't really talk about him too much. Certainly fine.
Can you turn a little bit down? It's too loud.
There you go. I know he put up 26 fantasy points roughly. Here, let me just pull up his log. All right. So, yeah, he's played 20-plus minutes in 4 of his last 5. What's his name? Jeff Nwankwo has been out, which is a lot of minutes, 10 to 15 minutes kind of became available for others there. A lot of that's gone to Forsyth. We've also seen Jaden Jones minutes ramp up there. So some secondary guys, and that's kind of coincided with Darian Reed's minutes going down as Forsyth and Jones have been able to play on the wing a little bit more. So certainly don't mind it at 4.6. Revised for projections and see. I think I have him projected for, was it 20 something minutes here? Hold on. Get that answer for you and then we'll head out. All right. So at 20 minutes, he does not project very well, right around 3.1x. If he makes it into the mid 20s range, he does get closer to value there. Which he played 30 last game. I don't know that I can realistically pop him for 30 again because typically plays around 20 to 22. So I think he's just more of a secondary value. Had he been priced at 4K or 3.8, somewhere in that range, like he has been earlier this season, I think he'd be a much better play. But at 4.6, you're getting kind of the ass end of it. And you're paying, the highest price he's been pretty much all year after a huge game. I'm not supremely confident or comfortable with that whatsoever. So for me, he's just an okay play. Whatever they said. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. All right. That will do it. Feel good about things. We will plan a show. Actually, I'm not even going to say that because the last 2 weeks that I have done a show, so we're going to do this regularly, and then something came up where I couldn't. So I am going to get a more ironed out schedule here so we can do our thing, but expect a ton of content around conference tournaments. We'll be hanging out on the FTN YouTube channel and on Twitter for Selection Sunday as we do. And a lot of great content planned for you guys overall. Appreciate it. Let's get after it. Green screens and window trips. See you guys next time on the Super Show.